Hello, guys and girls, and welcome to episode 159 of the F.Reality Podcast. Get ready for an injection of hype juice as we discuss this week's top VR news. We're going to be talking about an awesome hidden feature in the Oculus Quest 2. The HP Reverb G2 gets a shipping date. A new patent hints at new PSVR controllers are in the works. SideQuest gets a cash boost from Palmer Luckey himself. We'll be discussing the latest VR first-person shooter Solaris with our special guest Shabs from First Contact Entertainment. And to round up the show, Zim has got some awesome releases for you to look forward to next week. There is a really excited one that I'm super hyped for. Can't wait for that. But for now, let me introduce you to the team and find out what's been their highlight of the week this week. And also let us know what you played in the chat so we can read out some of your highlights too. First up to the plate, this guy will hold the control point and will put up a good fight when his gun is working anyway. It's the one and only Rowdy VR. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, like exactly. Like I did do my best, and my gun wasn't working all the time. That was mostly my fault because I had no idea how to shoot the bloody thing. But no, I think it was indeed a highlight for me. I'm sure that we'll be talking a lot about it during this episode, considering we have our special guest on here. And I'm thinking that a few of us might have it as a highlight as well. But it's been also the only game that I played this week. It was the kind of like the pre-release version of Solaris, and yeah, we had a ton of fun. We played it with a couple of other VR creators, and we absolutely beat their ass. Like
that's true.
There were no match whatsoever, no matter what they said, because they came with excuses afterwards. You know, like, oh yeah, but we were 3-4. Like it was only the last round they were 3-4. So no, like it doesn't work that way. They had Viper, they had Frank, which is no part of the team, and they still couldn't beat the F.Reality team.
Yeah,
flex boys. Yeah, exactly. They had the Lonely Viper, like that in itself. You know, I was worried going in that they were going to completely annihilate us, and he did play very, very well. And they had Gamertag VR, both very good players. But they were more focused on killing us, where we were more strategic and actually were holding the control point and getting the points. So we were winning the rounds.
We were clearly the brains of the operation.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. We
weren't going for the KD, you know, the nice KD that everyone always wants to shine.
We weren't trying.
No. We were putting points on the board. That's what we were worried about. Wow. Very true. Very true. But yeah, we're going to be talking more about Solaris later on. I think that's pretty much all of our highlight of the week this week, but we'll talk about that later on. So let's move on to the next person I want to introduce. And this guy, he's always got his head in the clouds, especially when exploring strange planets in virtual reality. It's VR streamer, Zimtok5. How are you doing?
Good, Mike. Good. Yeah, head in the clouds always. I think it's going to be stuck there for the next month or so, I'd say. So my highlight, God, there's too many things to highlight. This last week has been fucking fun. Like I've had just so much good fun. So I'm going to give little snippets, like Snickers minis is my thing. So the first one, you guys mentioned Solaris. Teaming up together was fantastic. That game it's ridiculous. Like I'm a Quake guy, I'm an Unreal Tournament guy, and someone in Solaris said, "Oh, that ages you, buddy." And he's like, "At least I know you're, my age." So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the fluidity of that game is brilliant. The other thing I played, which we mentioned last week, was Vox Machina, which is a way better a game than I even remembered it being. They've got giant like dune sandworms and stuff in that, and going mech on mech combat is just so good. You're limping along with missing a leg or something, and I am definitely going to be setting up like a social thing to do that more regularly, because that game feels like AA to me. It's amazing.
I watched the majority of your stream of that, and indeed, like also the visuals of that game are just so well done. The environments, they really feel like, this kind of like lone planet where like all life has been like taken out, but like these giant mechs like roam the land.
And don't forget the board computer. The board computer is crazy awesome.
The cockpit in itself is great.
The thing that really got a lot of people into it, which I wasn't expecting to be an immersive mechanic that was so cool, is just the radio system, because you're talking to each other in voice, but you pick up the microphone, right, and you have to hold it, like you hold it to your mouth, like you're like a truck driver, right, and then there's an animated character of all the people talking, and it really just does the immersion. But like the rocket volleys, you spec out your mech and it's your mech, and even just like running and ramming a mech into another mech is one of the things you can do, one of the tactics that works. God damn, that's a great multiplayer game. And the last thing I'm going to mention, just because, as a lot of you know, I'm a Switch fanboy, and I do a lot of co-op gaming with my family. And I found one that Mike will remember, and he and I have both boosted this game. Carrion is a game that where you can be the bad guy. I found a game that is the love child of like Carrion and Left 4 Dead. This like indie little game called Crawl. Ooh. So okay. CRAWL. Basically, you're a guy who's almost like I don't know, a person like in The Exorcist or The X-Files, and you drop down into this dungeon. And the catch here is it's a local game, 3 versus 1. So there's like 3 bad guys of all different types. You've got foxes, giant fishes that vomit, and all this kind of stuff. That's controlled by the other player, and you're the main player, and they're trying to kill you. If they manage to kill you, they swap bodies with you. And so the whole time you're trying to be the one who escapes, be the soul that lives. And again, it's got that lovely like back and forth, bad versus good, Left 4 Dead style, and dungeon crawler. I've never seen a game done so well. I spent a couple hours in that this morning with my family. So that's Crawl. If anyone's really looking for a Switch couch co-op game, that's amazing.
Nice. And is that online multiplayer?
No, that's the one reason I think I have not heard about it. It is only local, so you gotta have people around you. So if you got a family or a dorm room full of people,
do you have a family?
That's
a first, yeah.
Yeah.
I loved it when you were talking about Vox. It sounded so dirty. You were like, oh, that hot mech on mech action.
That's like, oh yeah, nice. Dude, I went back through my reviews. I was like, I gotta upgrade this to a buy, and I already had it marked as a buy. I'm like, yeah, like high-fiving myself from 2 years ago. It's such a good game. Vox is so underrated. Amazing.
Good recommendation. That was Vox Machina if you missed it first time around. Okay, next up. This guy can't wait to return to Rapture in Half-Life Alyx. It's the big daddy himself. It's the one and only. It's Nathy, of course. How you doing?
Yeah, you're right. There's now a mod for Half-Life Alyx in where you can return to Rapture and fight.
Bioshock.
Well, not big daddies just yet, but who knows? Maybe in the future. But there's still like headcrabs everywhere, and it's not less creepy for sure. I saw this this week. Someone sent it to me. Like everyone knows, I'm a big fan of Bioshock. Mm-hmm. I haven't tried it yet, sadly. I'm just too busy with the Quest 2, just like you. But it looks great. I'm definitely gonna cover it. I mean, there are no excuses. If you say you're a fanboy, you gotta deliver your fanboyism to the people. So I will definitely try it. Besides that, yeah, of course, like Solaris has also been my highlight. I haven't really played anything else, to be honest. But what I'm most excited for is, a couple of months ago, I ordered myself a new electric bike, and it seems like it's almost arriving, because this week they had the first shipment in Europe arriving in Rotterdam. It seems like next week they are going to send them out from the bike store in Amsterdam, because they have a store now. So it's really nice. So I'm super duper excited for it. I'm also happy in a way that it's delayed a little bit, because I was worried that I was going to get a Quest 2, and seriously, everything else that then arrives at your doorstep is not relevant for a moment, because everyone wants to see you making videos about the Quest 2, right? So I was like, no, please don't deliver my bike in the same week, because then I have to keep it in the box. And I'm like, because dude, like I like the Quest, I like VR headsets, but an electric bike, screw it. It's way more awesome.
And what model is it, so people know?
Yeah, it's a Super 73 RX.
Yeah,
it's the flagship model, the new one with everything on there that you want when you ride an electric bike. And I'm planning to, because it's a red one, I'm planning to turn it into a Tesla kind of like themed bike. Yeah. So it's gonna be crazy.
Is that like a wicker basket at the front with the streamers?
Yeah, wicker basket, no? Pink one with the bell. But I actually bought a Super 73 myself after trying Nathy's when I visited him. That's how cool these bikes are. So yeah, I can attest to how awesome they are. I'm very, very jealous he's getting the new one, though. I can't justify getting the new one to myself just yet, but it's super sick. So looking forward to when you get your hands on it.
It was so romantic, driving with Mike, like I was sitting at the back, holding him like tightly, and he was driving through the town, it was like the most awesome thing ever.
It's very true. It's a moment I'll never forget.
Mike is not denying it. That's the best part.
It was magical. So yeah, that is Nathy. Next up, our special guest this week from the team that brought us both Firewall and Solaris. It's Shabs from First Contact Entertainment. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So awesome. So awesome. So looking forward to talking all about Solaris with you later on. Because like Zim said, we all played together as a team and we absolutely dominated Viper and GT. So that was cool. We'll
just mention that a couple of more times.
Yeah, I just want to get that in there again. It'd probably be the only time in my lifetime that I beat Lonely Viper at anything. So I just want to stress, that we did it. But yeah, it's great to have you on the show. Have you got anything that you've played recently or anything you've done in VR that you want to highlight and share with us today?
No, in VR, I've been obviously been in Quest and Rift playing Solaris and playtesting with the team. But I jumped into Astrobot recently and picked up where I left off. And I love that game. Good. And it just finished that first world and it's got me hooked. So I'm excited about that.
That game is so magical. Like, I still think when people talk about like platformers, I think it even ranks as highly as like Mario Galaxy and those kind of games because it's got that certain magic to it that you could only get in VR. Yeah, I would love for there to be a sequel on PS5, but we'll talk more about that later.
Every time someone mentions this game, I just gotta smile and think about all those levels, like swimming under the ocean and things like. It's so magical. It's so awesome, and it's the mascot of PlayStation VR. Just saying,
When you're busting people's chops out, that's the thing for me. I was like, you start to do things in that game that you really don't do in other platformers and non-VR settings, and some of the wave action and all that kind of thing. It's just like it really ingrains itself into your head.
Yeah, I think Nathan, you said too. It's like that. It's sort of that Pixar kind of feel. It puts a smile on your face and makes you happy playing that game.
How was it like the first time you saw like this Astrobot like jumping out of your controller and be like, "Hey, I'm in here with my friends." You
I was we were at Gamescom showcasing Firewall, and it was right next door to us in Cologne, Germany. And I was like, "What is this game?" It looked like a platformer, and I didn't realize what it was until I put the headset on and he waved at me, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, this is incredible! I'm gonna pick this up." So.
It's
one of those
awesome.
like gems of VR for sure.
Absolutely, and the boss fights are phenomenal. The boss fights are amazing. Totally recommend it. And it was on sale recently. It was super cheap. How much was it, Zim? I can't remember.
$8, I think. I think it was $8 or for like £5. It's just like for that money, it's a steal.
But it proves that gamepads in VR are still super relevant and can really push it to the next level. Where in the PC VR scene, it's like because controllers don't get tracked inside your environment, they are kind of boring and dead. But because PlayStation made it trackable, that's amazing, and I hope they do it with the PlayStation 5 too. It's great. It's really cool.
In the chat, Jablo is asking, which is better, Astrobot or Moss?
Oh, don't make me choose. Don't make me choose. No.
Astrobot.
See, I think Quill is more adorable, and I feel more protective over her. But it's so hard. But I think Astrobot is a better platformer. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, I think I agree. Wow. I think if you're really into platformers, you want to go with Astrobot. But if you want like a bit more of like
story,
indeed, like an involving storyline or something you connect to a little bit better, I think Moss is the one. Moss is the one that I would choose out of the two if I had to choose between.
So hard. I think the moment that you reach out and you can feel Quill's heartbeat, like that's a real magical moment that I loved about that game. So it's very hard to choose between the two.
No one's saying Lucky Steel. No, not relevant anymore. No.
Who?
No.
Who?
Are we talking about him later?
Palmer Lucky Steel, yeah.
The second they made a game that was a sequel that wasn't in VR, then Lucky was dead to me.
Yeah, to be honest.
Wow, sad story.
So, if you don't know who I am, my name is Mike from Virtual Reality Oasis, host of the show. But let's find out what the chat have been up to this week, because they've always got some epic suggestions, and let's see what they've been playing this week.
Yes, very epic indeed. We have David Peters, who is still playing No Man's Sky VR. He says the new update looks awesome. Is that the update where they updated
Yeah, it's Origins. I'll talk about it later. Highlight it as one of the mentions in the releases.
Sure. Then we have Dave the Psycho, who played tons of Solaris. He checked out the co-op update for Death Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
Death Horizon is that zombie title?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
That's right.
I don't know if it's coming to Quest. Are they going to, updating it for Quest 2, not like coming, because it's coming anyways.
I thought it was already on Quest, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think it's on Quest.
No, it is. I mean, are they going to, of course, make more updates?
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, not sure.
So he also played Walkabout Mini Golf. Pokemon VR, Shuttle Commander, and finally finished Falcon Age. So if you're looking for a nice game on, PC, PlayStation VR, and now also on the Quest, then Falcon Age is a really neat one that I think came out at the wrong moment, a week before the Quest 2 got announced, as far as I know. So I don't think most people even remember this coming to the store. So there you go. And then last but not least, we have Objective Anomaly, who replayed Alex with Forced Fidelity Level 8 using the startup console, and he says it looks way crisper.
Wait, what is Forced Fidelity? Is that a mod? You guys know?
I have no idea.
I don't know. Maybe this is just a standard setting in the game where you can just bump up the resolution.
Yeah, if you can explain more, that'd be great. We've also got Sergio Franco flexing in the chat with his NVIDIA 3080 that you got this week.
Oh wow!
Very jelly, very jelly.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, good work, chat. You've made us proud this week. So obviously, Solaris was our highlight pretty much all across the board this week. So we're going to save that to the end of the show to talk to Shabs about it as well. So let's get straight into the news. And I've got some really interesting and exciting news to talk about straight off the bat. And this is about the Oculus Quest 2, as it's kind of got a hidden feature that not many people necessarily know about at the moment, but it is very, very exciting. And that is that the headset supports Wi-Fi 6. Now, this was confirmed this week on Twitter by Bruno Senden, who's the director of wireless at Facebook Reality Labs, after our friend Tyriel Wood was trying to get the answer directly from Qualcomm. As we know, the Quest 2 has the brand new XR2 chipset from Qualcomm, so we were hoping to get the answer from them, but we got it from Facebook themselves. So what is Wi-Fi 6? I hear you all asking. Well, to put it very simply, it's the next generation of Wi-Fi, which is not only faster, but also more efficient. Now, there are some routers out there available on the market now which support Wi-Fi 6. So the second I found out the news, I was like, I've got to test this for science. I ordered one from Amazon. It arrived the next day, and I put it to the test. If you're interested in the one I bought, I bought the Asus AX RT86U, which costs around £230. So it's quite expensive for a router. If you're looking for a Wi-Fi 6 certified router, they tend to be a bit more expensive because they're generally marketed as like gaming routers. But there is one app in particular on Quest 2 that really this feature is going to benefit from. Any of you want to take a guess at what app this might be?
Virtual Desktop.
Congratulations, Rowdy. Got it in one. Virtual Desktop. Exactly. So for those of you out there that use Virtual Desktop with Quest 1, you'll know that when you connect to a 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi connection, your speed will generally cap out at about 866 megabits per second. And that's the kind of cap that you'll reach on that headset and the 5 gigahertz bandwidth. However, in my testing using Quest 2 and Wi-Fi 6, I was able to cap it out at 1200 megabits per second on Virtual Desktop. So a nice little boost in performance there. Yeah. So what does this actually mean? Well, it means that our friend Guy over at Virtual Desktop will be able to take full advantage of this increased speed, taking advantage of the Quest's higher resolution and also the 90 hertz capability in the future. And you're going to have a very nice, smooth experience streaming PCVR content wirelessly to your Quest 2, which is totally epic.
Really quickly, the chat is mentioning that it's Wi-Fi 6E that you want, because that is Wi-Fi 6 on the 6 gigahertz band, but Wi-Fi 6 is just 5 gigahertz and 2.5 gigahertz, apparently.
So
I'm not familiar with that.
So what they said was it was like 2x2. If that means anything to you in the chat, that's what they said from Facebook. The configuration was. But in my testing, like I said, 1200 megabits per second, I was able to get using Quest 2 and the router that I purchased. When I tested the Quest 1 with the same router, it only capped out at 866, which must be a limitation of the Quest. So there is a bump in performance when you combine the two together.
So all of this together means that it's cheaper than having to buy a fiber cable.
Not necessarily. It would still be cheaper to buy the $80 fiber cable, but you just get the benefit of being wireless. Of course, the benefit of using a fiber cable is that it will keep your headset relatively charged during your play session. Obviously, it doesn't keep it 100% charged. It will drain a little bit, but albeit very slowly. Of course, if you're playing wireless, then you're just going to drain your battery. But if you maybe buy the Elite battery strap, then that might be a good solution if you're going to play wirelessly using Virtual Desktop.
Curious.
We have Guy Gordon in the chat himself as well, by the way.
I was just going to say, got a question for him actually, because is the software not automatically at present limiting the upper bandwidth on their highest setting of virtual desktop? Like,
so I've been testing a beta build.
Okay, that's how
which
you're doing
unlocks
it.
the new speed.
Cool.
Yeah.
Really quickly though, because we need to be clear on this. We have Guy Godin in the chat saying that the Quest 2 has Wi-Fi 6 and not Wi-Fi 6E. So
Okay.
I believe that what you said initially was correct. Then.
Well, all of this sounds like we should just invite him over again when the Quest is finally out, the new one, and then talk about this.
Yeah, and I think it's important to stress that, right now, in my testing using Virtual Desktop with Quest 2, it's running at the same resolution as Quest 1 right now. And we're just waiting for, more development time in terms of Virtual Desktop to push out an update to take full advantage of it. Yeah. I would expect this to come, after release and people start getting their headsets, maybe end of October. But, all I'd say is that it's just very, very promising. It's great to know that this feature exists and that, we're going to be able to have that little bit of extra headroom in terms of speed. And that, I'm sure Guy is going to be able to work his magic and take full advantage of that when people get their hands on the Quest 2. So I think it's a great alternative, particularly if, playing wirelessly is really great. And if you think about it back in the day, when everyone was using like a Rift CV1, we were spending like £400 on a TP cast, to play wirelessly back then. And now, for the same amount of money as a TP cast, you can buy a Quest 2 and a Wi-Fi 6 router probably. Yeah. And have the same experience.
But I think the benefit here comes from the fact that a lot of North American ISPs, although I would say under normal conditions, the box that you get from the ISP isn't as performant. In the States and a lot of the major cities, you get a Wi-Fi 6 enabled router as it is. And just a small part of my brain is shouting at me. I think it's pronounced Guy Godin, not Guy.
Guy.
We keep saying Guy, and
he
corrected me.
And then it's French.
And then I'm sure the Americans there are like router.
Router.
But you went Bosch or Makita? Which one did you recommend, Mike? Bosch, Makita?
So just to be clear as well, like not all Wi-Fi 6 routers are made equal, because Guy did actually order one that was certified as Wi-Fi 6, but it turned out not to be. So if you're interested, the one I bought again, Asus AX-RT86U. Is the one I bought. Yep.
So that means basically that you can play wherever you want, and the PC doesn't need to be close to you, because that's the thing with a fiber cable. You need to be next to your PC to be able to play on it. But when you want to play downstairs or you want to play upstairs or somewhere else, then you can just do that without it's. Yeah.
But hang on, that's one question with testing on this, Mike, because I've done extensive 5G experiments in my place as well. And again, it's a European house, not an American house. That means block walls, not wood paneling, which matters for throughput, particularly at a higher frequency, because it's less penetrative. So for instance, in this room, or room one wall back, I can play fine on 5 gig. If I go downstairs or downstairs across the way, no good on 5 gigahertz. I can get a 2.4 gigahertz signal, no problem. How far away have you tested on 6?
Literally like 2-3 meters away in my office. So I will test it. I haven't tested it yet. No one's mentioned that yet. I haven't thought about that myself. So because it's not like a use case I would normally use it with. But I will test it for you, and I'll give you the answer.
Imagine his neighbors sitting like in their front yard, and suddenly Mike walks out with his headset, and he's like, "Oh, let's go, infinite space, infinite internet, let's go."
Yeah, but I think it's very promising. When Link comes out of beta, Virtual Desktop get these updates, we're going to be spoiled, I think, in terms of the quality of these streaming solutions. I think it's going to be great. So I thought I'd let everyone know about that. Of course, as soon as we get more information and the updates start rolling in, I'll keep you all updated. But some exciting news for now anyway.
Sounds good.
Next bit of news is going to be good for those of you out there that pre-ordered the HP Reverb G2. Any of you end up pre-ordered in the end after we had Terry on the show, got us all super hyped for the headset? No? I was also very tempted.
I want it. I just think, again, with the Quest news coming, I held, and now having seen it, it's like, will I need it? That's the hard question. We'll see, because I know now, like, the fact that the Rift S is running up against a dead end wall now makes me very interested. If for specifically desktop purposes, well, I want it. It's such a sexy headset, and I think that everyone who's angry at Facebook right now has a great target in the G2. So.
Yeah, it's a good option. Of course, it is PC only, but Tyriel was very impressed with it. He sort of recommended it as a headset. He was particularly impressed with the audio, which was borrowed from the Valve Index, and the high resolution displays of 2160 by 2160 per eye, which is going to be beautiful. Yeah, and we also know that Windows MR is going to get first access to Microsoft Flight Simulator when that gets its VR update later on this year. So that's going to be interesting.
And I think what's most important, what we shouldn't forget, is that HTC has not been able to, sell, decent headsets for a while now. And because of that, HP has taken over their place and is now kind of, holding the fortress of what we call PCVR. And it's nice that they are there, because I don't know what would have happened if HP was like, yeah, whatever, we'll not make a new one. And then HTC completely flopping with, the Vive Cosmos. It's like, what else would there be, right? Yeah, Valve, but I mean, we're talking about like someone who's actively wanting to do stuff in the VR scene. So I think that's great. I think it's really nice that they're there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got some updates from them this week in a blog post telling us about the shipping, because that was the thing. Like, if you pre-ordered, you were kind of a little bit in the dark in terms of when you were actually going to get your headset. But they finally gave the sort of customers their answer this week, and they said customers who have already pre-ordered the HP Reverb G2 can expect to receive their shipments this fall, starting in early November 2020. Pre-orders are expected to be prioritized for the time and date the order was made to our channel partners. Demand has been high, so all pre-orders made starting today, September 24th, will start arriving to customers from channel partners in early December. So if you want one now, you're going to be waiting a little bit longer. Someone asked in the chat what the price was. It's $599 in US dollars, which is an excellent price for this headset considering the resolution of the displays. One thing to bear in mind, though, right now is that the models that are out in the wild that Tyriel has and MRTV has their pre-production models, so we need to bear that in mind. I really want to wait personally until someone gets hold of the final version of the unit, because from what we saw on the pre-production model, it felt very plasticky and you can hear the plastic creaking, and build quality is very important to me. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, if it's good, the final model, and let's say people are like, yeah, this is great, like the speakers, like I'm like completely addicted now to like good audio in VR. Like the Valve Index is like, a master in that. So I'm like, wow, I want that, it's just that the next power move that HP needs to make is build a platform and start making some games, because you're still stuck with Steam VR. And I mean, Steam VR does get updated from time to time, but it does feel ancient compared to what Oculus is doing with their platform. So if they're smart, they throw some money into making, I don't know, like a game based on the printers they usually produce about the history or whatever. I don't know.
I don't think they'll do that.
No, I know, but it's like, that would be a good step, because you get the headset, but you're still stuck with the same software. But it's with every PC VR headset, basically.
Yeah, that's right. But I think
you can use Revive at least and still, play but then you're still stuck with Facebook. So if you don't want to play Facebook, then you can't use Oculus.
The biggest problem with that headset, I mean, you mentioned the audio. Do you guys know what mic it has for pickup? Because I think that's a really important part.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, it's not the same microphone. That's what they said. Makes me a little bit less interested, because the microphone of the Valve Index combined with the speakers is like, mwah.
Yeah, it is. But the controllers is the weakest part of that package, in my opinion, because Windows MR as a specification, and this is my main curiosity. When you sign up to develop for Windows MR, are you committed to using that tracking control system? Because obviously you've got, different players have their control schemes that work with Steam VR, and I think that's a really important backbone. But honestly, if they can get away from those controllers, I'd be way more interested in the headset. If they could get to something that's more accurate, even if it was outside-in tracking, like I just, those controllers, I have no interest in them.
Especially when you consider the battery life as well, because the battery life on the Windows MR controllers hasn't improved, and they've confirmed that with the Reverb G2. You're going to get burned through a couple of batteries each controller in a matter of days.
It's just so big.
And if you look at the improvements that Oculus have made with the new batteries in the new controllers, like, I think my batteries in the new Quest 2 controllers are still at 80%. Like they made them 4 times more efficient.
Well, at least,
I don't know how they did that.
At least they made it like subpar to how the controllers look like, you know, on the Quest and the Rift. So, you know, game-wise, they are still matching more than they did before with the previous controllers. But I totally agree. Like they're very hungry for battery.
Yeah, and I think you know, you're also going to have to remember that you're going to need a beefy GPU to power this headset. You know, especially if you want to play games like Microsoft Flight Sim. You know, you're really going to be pushing like the latest, you know, RTX 2080 Ti or maybe a 3080, or you know, if you're got super deep pockets, go still, full hog on the 3090.
But still, like, you know, I'm like this week I jumped a few times from my Oculus Quest 2 to my Valve Index, and every time I put my Valve Index on, I'm like, God, this looks so much better. This looks great. This is just, you know, even at this headset, but my God, the display. And I think it's the same with the G2. So if you're a PSVR enthusiast, you still want to have it. And there aren't many options because PSVR landscape is not the most, you know, exciting thing right now. So HP is the only one this year that really says like, hey, we make headset, we sell hardware. You want it, here it is. No one else. No one else. So it's like, it's an opportunity of a lifetime, I feel like. Even that, the price is high and you need to spend a lot of money to, but it's great. It's
going to be worth it in the end.
So long as content creators do adjust the offset to the controller types, I think that's the biggest worry, right, with the consumer. That's like, well, if it's jumping so often, X amount of games support these controllers and you have to use Revive or some sort of alternative for these other headsets. I think we need some unification there where the support is at least in line with the controllers. That's why I like the Quest. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. When I saw the controllers, I was like, at least they're similar. I don't have to like relearn things, or we as developers make it easier because we don't have to adjust too much of the controller animations and controller positions in general.
Yeah, I think, you know, the new controller design is certainly an improvement because they've added a layout that looks very similar to the Oculus controller. So hopefully it doesn't cause too many problems for developers, and at least there's some parity there. And hopefully, if more third parties start making like this kind of what I like to call second generation Windows MR headsets, that they kind of follow that guideline. But we'll have to wait and see. But certainly, I think you're right. You know, Nathan, that HP are kind of leading the pack right now in terms of like PC VR. You know, obviously the Index is super high end, but you've got this nice middle of the road option now. The Cosmos could have had its own little space in, but it kind of they totally messed it up with the Cosmos. So I think the G2 will probably reign in that kind of middle of the road category. For sure.
It does feel very much like the landscape is like very much like fluctuating.
It does.
Like we had first HTC Vive, we had Oculus, who were really like the key players in that market. Then the Index came in, and you had Windows MR that came in and dropped out again. Now the HP Reverb. It feels like there's like a lot of testing going on between different kind of manufacturers in terms of. I just wonder again, like how long is this headset now going to be in this position?
That's what I'm saying. If HP throws some money into at least one game to make, you know, they throw a few million in there to make one game, that would already be a start. Because that's why everyone loses from. If HTC made the Vive Cosmos and you know, it's a bad headset. It is a bad headset. But then they make a really nice game. People are like, yeah, but I still want to play that one game. And that's the problem. Like that's why like hardware doesn't win from the content. And that's why the Oculus platform will only become bigger from here, because they throw so much money at exclusives. So that's what I'm hoping. I'm just hoping like hardware is great, but content, man.
HP would be better off just trying to convince some nice people at Microsoft to push some of their IPs into VR, like
exactly.
Forza or...
Well, they had Halo. They once tried it with fucking Halo Recruit, and make Halo now, make a nice experience of like 30 minutes, and it feels like a movie. It would be a start at least, you know?
Yeah, true. Well, they've got it with Microsoft Flight Sim to a certain degree. They've got that exclusivity window.
That's true.
You know, it's going to be coming to other headsets later, so it's going to be interesting.
Really quickly, Mike, I got an update as well in the chat from Gigo Down, the question that Zim asked in terms of range. And he mentioned that Wi-Fi 6 has the same range as Wi-Fi 5 because they both use the 5 gigahertz signal. Yeah. One wall should be okay, but floors are typically bad.
Yeah,
so
thanks. Appreciate that answer.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, that is the HP Reverb G2. If you've pre-ordered it, they'll be shipping to you early November, or if you haven't bought one yet, if you want to buy one now, they'll ship early December. HP Reverb G2. Next bit of news is about PSVR. as we've got some more indications that they're working on new controllers, as we had some new patent filings which were reported on by Upload VR. Now, we talked about the PSVR controllers a while ago, like these new prototype controllers, and we had a video that showed like individual finger tracking on these kind of rough-looking prototypes. And we were pretty excited back then because the technology is kind of on par with what Valve are offering with the Index, like that really nice fidelity when it comes to finger tracking on a controller. And these new patent filings, it's unclear if that tech is in these controllers, but it would probably seem likely from what we've seen so far. But these new patent images, they show the controller design, and they also show that they've got this kind of like button layout and the configuration of the thumbsticks and stuff like that, which is really nice. And I think that is probably the thing that I'm most excited about these controllers, is that they've got thumbsticks. Like, thank the Lord.
Where was that one image? I've always seen these images floating around of like this Move controller with like thumbsticks on them.
There is one.
There is one. Yeah, you can buy that. You can buy that. It's actually pretty. It's older than the latest revision to the Move, but you can buy them.
With PlayStation VR?
Good question. I never picked one up myself. I've heard of people using them with it, but it's like it's so old tech at this stage. And you guys know, because I've gone from like when I first looked at the Move, I was like, this is so old tech. Come on, in the first year of PSVR, you're definitely gonna revise this. To picking them up and loving them. You guys know I like them better than the original HTC Vive controllers, because those trackpads, for example, they just die. They just die after 6 months or a year and a half's worth of use, and then they're just rubbish. Whereas the Moves just keep on going. I love the Moves.
That's why I liked the aim controller so much, because it had a thumbstick on it.
Exactly. The aim controller you can use ubiquitously as a PSVR controller up until the point that you're playing a game like Astrobot, right?
Yeah, true. And one thing that's really interesting about these patent images is that it suggests that the controllers will be tracked by the headset itself rather than external sensors.
So inside out.
Which would also suggest that the headset itself is inside out tracked as well, which is going to be really interesting, because I think
standalone.
I'm not holding out hopes for standalone. I just think it would be a console-based PSVR headset.
Know. They've seen the success about like the Quest as well. It wouldn't be.
I would love them to. I would absolutely love them to do that.
The Quest is the example. You can hook it up to your PC and you can play standalone. What if you hook it up to your PlayStation 5? It's the same story.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Or maybe they've hired Kiko Dan to make the virtual desktop version of the.
Yeah, sure.
They should hire him. They should hire him. He's an awesome dude. But yeah, I think inside-out tracking is something that a new tracking system.
That's good. That's really nice.
I think that's all we've really ever asked for in terms of from what we want from PlayStation, because the content is amazing. I think there's no denying that. Got some amazing library of content there. So if they can make a slightly better headset, better controllers and better tracking, then they're going to be onto a winner there for sure.
More awesome games.
So people were saying the crescent in these controllers is on the opposite side to the Index, and not having had an Index in my hands, is the crescent on the Index is on the inside of your palm or the outside of your palm?
It's on the outside. And these looks like it's on the outside as well.
That's what I thought as well. Yeah. So to me, it looks like they're basically just taking a kind of Index style controller.
Yep.
So hands free, you're saying?
It's not a hands-free component. Someone was mentioning that the crescent was on the opposite side, and I was worried about.
You don't have to hold them. That's what I mean.
That's what you mean, yeah.
Hands-free.
So hands-free, but I was worried about conflict of the two crescents hitting each other if they were on the opposite side, because if you try to, anyone who's used I mentioned the Vive ones, they were terrible for gun reloads because you'd have the two donuts hitting each other when you'd be sliding plastic, and it's one of the most immersion breaking things to hear that lovely scrape of plastic in the middle of your play session. So I'm just excited that PlayStation are obviously filing patents, working away on the design. But I've never it's very rare that I've seen patent news materialize into direct product. It's just like they kind of throw the patent in there, and then we get an idea that they're working on something, and you've no idea what the final thing is going to look like. So whenever this is going to actually land with us, the new PSVR equivalent, that system, these controllers, I'm just going to be glad, because I want a behemoth to come in and challenge Oculus's domain right now. I want that to happen.
You know what I'm hoping is that the controller they work on, you can just click it into different accessories. So the Move, like the PlayStation aim control, is like a thing on itself, right? But let's say with the next gen, it's like you can just click your controller into something. It's like, okay, I'm not going to play this game. Click, done.
Oh, like the Wii then, like the Wiimote. Yeah,
it's like, oh, I want to play pool. Let's stick it into my controller, or play tennis and things like that. Like back in the days. No, because like the aim controller in shooters is great, but there's so many other things that could also use. Like I would love to play golf with like this fake golf stick. Seriously, if there's some weight to it. It's really immersive.
HTC had those trackers, right? I thought that's where that was gonna go. But
yeah. They do. Yeah, they have the tennis rackets and what is it?
I always wanted one of those like duck hunt blasters, but I couldn't get one. They like
I had one, but
they're so rare to find nowadays. I really wanted one.
Wow.
But
you
yeah,
buy
so like
$1,000
bargain.
I sold one.
You sold it?
Yeah,
$1,000
before I moved to Canada for 2,000.
2,000. Wow. But yeah, I think, we all said last week when we mentioned about the prices of the new PS5 consoles that we kind of all agreed that neither of us were going to buy one until they announced their plans for PSVR. So at least, although this is kind of still very speculative, at least it's nice that we're getting drip fed this kind of information that something is happening at least in the Sony camp. And I would imagine at this point, we're probably going to have to wait until maybe early next year for them to announce their plans.
I think it can be a lot longer than that. I think we're going to be waiting a year before we hear anything solid. I really do.
Dude, I hope not.
Well, they have the leverage to wait. That's one thing.
That's the problem. Sony just like cools it, sits back, does their thing. When they want to announce it, they will. It'll probably be like Q2 next year we hear about it.
They just sit back and relax. Well, HP is like, we got to print a new headset quick because otherwise the market is going to be taken over.
Well, the good thing is that they have a lot of printers, so
yeah, that's true. That's how they made the headset, Rowdy. That's how they made G2s.
Oh, Jesus.
So they do it.
So yeah, hopefully we don't have to wait that long for a new PSVR 2.
Please, pretty please.
That is some sneak peek at a controller design in the works. Final bit of news this week is about SideQuest. Obviously, SideQuest, if you're not familiar with it and you're new to the show maybe, it's basically like the easiest software to use to sideload apps and games onto your Oculus Quest and Quest 2, which aren't available on the official store. We had the creators of SideQuest on the show, Shane and Orla Harris, on a while ago. We had a really interesting chat with them about how SideQuest came about and, some things that were looming in the future that I think we were all concerned about. Maybe they knew the answers for, but maybe couldn't necessarily talk about it as freely as they maybe wanted to back then. But since then, we've heard from Oculus about their new plans for sideloading content onto the Quests. And it's going to be much easier. I talked about this on a previous show, and basically how it's going to work in the future is that developers can either provide keys, like they do now, for content, and then you'll be able to download it directly from the Quest headset itself, which is pretty interesting, or add it to your Oculus account. Or developers will be able to just provide a URL link, which they can post on like Twitter or other social media, Reddit, whatever. People can click on that link and download that game or experience directly to their headset. The difference is now that instead of being sort of hosted by SideQuest or the content hosted by SideQuest, the content is now being hosted by Oculus.
Yeah, because she was like the one that monitored all the content, like this is okay and this isn't, and now there will be other people involved who have maybe a different opinion about what's okay.
Well, it will be Oculus involved that do that. We know that they have a strict curation process for their store, which I think we've talked about the benefits and cons of that system. The benefits are you get really high quality games on the store. You can pretty much buy anything and it's always going to work great, and you're likely going to have a great experience. You don't get the same scenario on Rift, for example, where there's just a lot of trash on the store. You could buy something, it might not be that great. So that is a benefit of the curation process. Some of the other cons are that we've seen developers that have made really good content, but have kind of been blocked out of the system and being given very little information as to why. But SideQuest has always been like a kind of option there. Like, if you didn't get on the official store, you've got an option there. You can be on SideQuest. You can even monetize that. So it was a good way for developers to get some revenue in on a game that maybe was blocked officially.
But now the question is, if you as a developer are not allowed to get on the official store, are you then still allowed to be on the SideQuest store? Because it's still the same company.
Well, so the curation process will still be there, but it will be at a much lower level. But the problem is, and this is where I worry about virtual desktop, because Virtual Desktop, for those not familiar, they made a functionality of Virtual Desktop where you could play Steam VR content and Oculus content wirelessly streamed to the headset. And Oculus weren't happy about that update, and they kind of made, remove that feature from the official version, and then you had to sideload the additional patch to unlock that functionality, basically. And what I'm worried about is that they say, oh, well, that now breaches our terms and conditions or is not, possible. And they kind of shut the door on them. And whereas like previously it was hosted by SideQuest and they could kind of like, they could do the curation. It's now being hosted by Oculus.
Well, SideQuest was fine until Oculus got involved. They shouldn't get involved with something that is like even that logical from like a third-party perspective. They should, but it's like it will become less open VR again, and they again shut some doors for people. And
I think maybe they didn't. I think they underestimated the interest in sideloading content and experimental stuff.
They didn't want to listen, and then SideQuest came around and they filled up the market, and now they want to take over SideQuest.
They want that back.
And they could or say, okay, we take over SideQuest and we just learn from them and we use it, then we build our own, like they had with Oculus Share, or they just shut it down after a while, and there is no. I don't think that's going to happen, but they are definitely interested in it because they want to build their own version of it.
Well, I think the problem might come is that that this new system will come in place, and then they might close the old loophole of registering as a developer and closing that down. And we've seen some moves towards that already in some emails saying that you have to verify your developer account. I think they'll push it even further potentially in the future.
According to you, the apps that make the Quest so awesome, like Virtual Desktop, might be in trouble again.
Maybe. Well, we don't know for sure, but that's what I'm worried about.
I think you're right about it. I hate to say it, but I mean, I'm sure they are not a big fan of that feature.
Yeah. But one thing I want to talk about, which is kind of interesting, is that we were worried about SideQuest to a certain degree, but it seems like they're going to be the kind of unlisted app storefront essentially for all these unlisted games, and they're going to host all like the URLs, so you can go to SideQuest and you can browse like a library of experimental or interesting content that wouldn't be on the official store, because of course, although this content is going to be hosted by Oculus, you're not going to be able to search for it on their official store. So SideQuest will be the alternative, basically, where you look at what's available there, basically, and you can download it directly from clicking on the URLs of these these apps and games. But we were kind of worried about where their money would come from. But it looks like they've just had some investment this week, which is really awesome to hear. They had a $650,000 US funding this week, mainly from VC funding, but also, interestingly, from Palmer Luckey himself. He donated to the cause, and
some pocket money from the luck.
Yeah, this is really interesting, and he gave a statement actually about this to TechCrunch, and Palmer said himself, no HMD manufacturer should have a stranglehold on the VR ecosystem or unilateral control over what people run on their VR headsets. So when I look at SideQuest, I see the spirit of Oculus Share. And that's what we've been saying on the show for a long time, is that SideQuest is essentially Oculus Share of the good old days of Oculus.
What you're saying is that he's concerned too, but even that Palmer Luckey is a rich man, he can only slow the process down. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it will happen. It will happen.
Yeah,
and it's also a statement for him. It was more of a statement than anything else, not trying to slow it down. Just like listen, like Mark Zuckerberg bought my company, and this is my opinion about what's going on. So yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that they've got funding, that they're going to last longer. What this means for them, I think they'll be fine, but I'm just worried about some of these developers like Virtual Desktop, and I really hope...
So you think they will still be working, maybe they start working for Oculus or with Facebook?
Well, I think, Shane and Orla made it clear that they had a good relationship with Oculus. I think they were in contact regularly with Chris Pruitt, who's like the, director of content over at Oculus.
Okay.
So I think that they'll survive, and I think they'll still have a website which hosts all this like unofficial, unlisted stuff, and there'll be a portal for that essentially, and I think that's why they'll survive. But I worry more about the developers than I do worry about SideQuest at this point.
Yeah. According to David, Palmer Luckey is the biggest fan of the show, so I
of
think
course
he's watching. He's watching right now.
Of course he is.
What up?
You know, if you love VR, then you watch the F.Reality Podcast. That's what you do. You listen to it.
This is a weird place to be. And the last time Palmer gave $400,000, it was to Trump, wasn't it? In support of his campaign. So Palmer's a weird dude. Like, you know, he obviously is very important to the start of VR. He's had a very big voice since the beginning of that, and he still is very invested in this. Although he's moved into other kind of tech, I find him to be a really interesting character to kind of keep an eye on and just see where he's playing, where he's moving his chess pieces. I see this as that. It's I wouldn't call it a political chess play. It's definitely a chess play, and I think that from my position on this, there's only one target. Like if SideQuest, I think what we've seen with SideQuest is kind of apparent, and it's been apparent to me for the last kind of 6 months or something. But from a virtual desktop perspective, you know, they've had a sniper target beat it on Guy for quite a while. And I'll be honest, there's very little that'll move my meter from kind of like calm to pissed off. But if they shut the door on Guy after all of his work and all of the people he's sold headsets like up the wazoo for this functionality, and honestly, if they're not, if they're going to shut the door on that, if that ends up happening, I'll be fucking pissed. And I just wanted to say that because virtual desktop and the spirit of the development that's gone behind that has been so beautifully indie. I will be very angry. I mean, to the point where I'll be going like, this is a hostile platform now. Any other app, I don't feel the same kind of animosity towards, but that's just the way it is.
This is very much in line with what like Palmer has been doing for a while. You know, he has a certain vision with virtual reality that he likes it to go. That was also the reason why he sold it to Facebook, right? In the beginning, it's not because I think he's in line with their political views, on the contrary, but I think he has this vision with virtual reality, and he felt that Facebook was a good fit in order to push that further. But at the same time, he wants these kind of like, you know, like for example, Guy or the people from SideQuest, to get that kind of experience and that kind of development continuing on that kind of platform, because that is of course pushing that boundary of technology even further and making it worthwhile for other people to invest in it. But indeed, like you said, it is worrying to have a tech giant like Facebook to be, you know, holding the control on that, just in general.
Going back to what Zim said, like it's not a question if, it's a question when it's gonna happen. And if Zim is pissed or not, they don't care. So,
but they bought the keys. They bought the keys to the house. So fair enough, right? Like the amount of money they've been funneling into this platform and the greater good, unfortunately, ends up overriding. So I understand that, and I agree with you, Nathan. I think it's a matter of when, not if.
I just hope that Guy finds, like, he's very good at what he's doing, so he finds, you know, a place where they do appreciate what he's doing, and wherever that is, we'll see. Time will tell. But of course, the community will not be happy when it happens.
I think what Zim is trying to point out is that people like Guy are important for the entire platform.
Regardless
for
us.
No. I think for the entire platform, I think he has been pushing the boundary on virtual reality ever since he started creating virtual desktop. And I think if Facebook would not value a person like that, regardless of whether they push out virtual desktop, but someone who has experience in developing something like that can probably make a lot of other different interesting technologies things as well. And if we lose people like that on developing a platform like this, I think we all lose out on that. And I think that is something
that's the problem.
Needs to realize, and that is kind of the story that Palmer is. Whether you agree with the guy or not, like that is the kind of thing that he's pushing forward as well. That's why he's putting money in SideQuest, not specifically because of SideQuest, because the people that have been working there, if they don't get that money, they also can't continue working on other things.
Yeah. So we'll soon see. I'm sure this new sideloading process is going to be pushed out relatively soon. So I'm sure we'll have the details then, and of course we'll keep you updated with the latest news around that. But it's good to hear that they got investment. I'm glad that Lucky himself is getting involved and backing the cause as well. So thank you to him. And yeah, we'll keep you updated over the next coming months and weeks once we hear anything new about that. So that is all the news this week. We've kind of rattled through it, which is really good. It's going to give us plenty of time to talk to Shabs, which is what we're going to get into right now. So Let me introduce him again. This is Shabs from First Contact Entertainment, the developers behind the excellent Firewall 0 Hour on the PlayStation VR. We talked about that game regularly on the show about how great of a shooter it is.
Oh, yeah.
We were just pointed that in PlayStation, but at least now we've got Solaris, which is on Quest and on Rift as well. We've been playing it this week. We had an absolute blast as a team. I just want to highlight again that we beat the Lonely Viper.
wait. We can't, like, I think to be fair to him, for those who don't know, Lonely Viper is one of the best, like, FPS players out there.
He is
in terms of VR creators. The guy was reviving, right? He wasn't on one of the platforms that we were on. So
don't give him any excuses.
From a non-native support, I gotta say,
dude,
you gotta go toe to toe with the guy if you're gonna win.
He was playing. Come on.
This game, like that's the nice part about Solaris is that it's so straightforward gameplay-wise. There isn't much you need to learn because the reloading mechanics happen by themselves, and it's like, you jump in. It's easy to learn but hard to master. So that whole excuse Zim is trying to make. Back this guy. Yeah. Let's find someone else on the podcast.
You want to try it? Yeah. Come at me.
You're backstabbing us. You're backstabbing us now. After 3 years, this is your moment to backstab us. That's the most silly moment ever.
When you're an Olympiad athlete, and this comes down to anyone who's a Twitch FPS player, and I don't mean Twitch, I mean like Twitch emotion. You want them to have this is down to the like low ping bastards conversation that we had in the 90s. I think that Viper, GT, the opposition team, we definitely beat them. Don't get me wrong in that. We totaled those guys. But I think if we gave them a second round and we were all on similar platforms, they might toast us. So that's all I'm saying.
He made his choice, and he made the wrong choice.
He played on increased resolution even. He saw the pixels. Yeah. I didn't see pixels the first 2 rounds. God damn it.
You know what's funny? Since we played, I ran into GT on like random arrangement in Solaris just yesterday while I was just cranking at the game, and you digitally like look at somebody, and he was the opposite team, and it's like he's pre-gaming for the next match. He's preparing for a rematch, and so am I. And unfortunately, he was kind of kicking my ass a little bit. So good job, GT.
Can I also just highlight that we wanted to play more, but they just stopped playing out of nowhere.
Right.
We were like, hey, next match, please. And they're like,
I don't want to say they rage quit, but they probably did. Yeah, they probably rage quit.
Everyone's out of time.
And that has nothing to do with a platform, by the way.
Enough of us flexing about our win anyway. Not like we've done it enough in our group chats. Let's talk to Shabs. So, Shabs, maybe we should start with like, how we normally start with developers that come on the show, because I think it's always an interesting story to tell. Is like, what was your sort of history prior to getting involved with First Contact Entertainment, and how did you end up sort of getting into the VR industry in the first place? I think that's always a good place to start.
Well, it's a long road, but it's a long road back. But I'll do a TLDR of how I came into contact with First Contact.
Sure.
Was really back when I was still at Treyarch. I had met Hess Barber, our CEO and president of First Contact there, and we worked on Black Ops 2. So that's when I first met him. And then after I was at Treyarch for a while, I had left and joined his team, working on The Walking Dead and some John Wick VR content. So that then turned into First Contact when we studio closed out of Starbreeze. So we kind of sat around and thought about what we should start our own studio, and First Contact was formed, and that's really where.
This was like a demo, right, on Steam, like this really like pumped up, like graphics wise, like little experience that you made.
Yeah, exactly. It was a pretty small content pack there, but visually, audio wise, we were trying to demonstrate what we can do as this new group.
Nice.
That's when we started working on a multiplayer prototype, because everybody out there was saying that you can't use locomotion. There's a lot of teleporting and room scale at the time. So our first thing was to do is just locomotion. Let's shatter these myths about VR. Let's get real gaming in the headset.
So how was it to go from Treyarch, massive studio, like insanely big, like Black Ops 2, great game for sure. I'm looking forward to the new one as well. But going from that to like, we have this, like, I just think about like this little shed like you have together. It's like, hey, we have our own studio. Yes, let's go. Like that must be a big difference.
There's a big difference there. I'm glad you asked that, because ultimately you go from hundreds of employees down to, when we started, it was like 13, 14 people. So
wow.
What you end up doing is a lot more than one job, and certainly banding together and hitting our goal, and just honestly, it's just more or less the passion behind VR. Our studio really loves
Does
VR.
it feel more rewarding to do that?
It certainly does when you're done. When you finish, like this week, it felt very good. But the hard work actually starts now. We're building out Solaris. Obviously, we could get into that, but it's just getting it out and then building it to become something great. And really, with you guys and our fan base that have followed with us since we started.
Yeah. And what's your sort of like, what was your kind of role at Treyarch, and what sort of role do you take at sort of First Contact now?
So when I first started at Treyarch, I was actually in PC tools testing in QA, and I was working on COD 3 at the time, 2006, and I was messing around with tool sets after work because we had access to them and making multiplayer maps, and ultimately did a design test for the World at War team for Call of Duty, and that was very stressful at the time, but I couldn't believe the opportunity that Treyarch gave me, so I wanted to make sure I did it the way I would want to, and the way they wanted me to. So that got me into the design team, and since then we did Black Ops 1, 2, 3, as well as obviously Awesome Zombies work out of Treyarch.
You worked like on the best games, basically.
Oh yeah, thanks. I mean, Treyarch's a big team, a lot of talent there, and I agree. I mean, those are some very cherished times of game development. Because we had a lot of eyes on us at the time, and we were also a team that had to prove ourselves, and they certainly have. I mean, I can't wait till Cold War. It looks awesome.
Yeah. And when you moved over to sort of First Contact, what was your sort of like main role in that team?
So at First Contact, I was lead game designer at first, and we were forming up who does what, new studio, startup quirks. We had production, sort of one hat production, one hat design, and creative leadership with Hess. And so it slowly but surely, we as we grew, less multiple roles were taken up by one person, which is always good. But we're still a small team, so it's one of those things where our games sometimes would maybe appear as though there's a larger team, and we have an extensive QA team to test our work and make sure it's all solid. But we are a small team doing big things, I think, and I'm very proud of what we're able to do, for sure.
And maybe we should touch on like Firewall, because how do you go from this like small team of people put together to then like getting an exclusive title with PlayStation, because that's a huge deal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When we had our red and blue, like mannequin-looking characters in a very white boxed environment, running around with one weapon and a laptop, we established a partnership with Sony, making an awesome, first-person shooter for PSVR. From there, I think it was always just the challenges, right? We were always talking about like locomotion being something you can't do, and well, you can't teleport locomotion with an multiplayer game. It just doesn't necessarily work unless you tie it into the lore. So after we've done some military combat contractor tactical shooter, which is slower and more methodical, Hess wanted to do something more approachable, more future and sci-fi. We love tech. I mean, we're making VR games. We're into something that is pushing the boundaries, essentially, and something that not many have attempted, sort of like the Everest of tech right now. And we aim to do something fast, quick, easy to pick up, like you said, Nathan. So that's how Solaris ultimately span up. It was just learning a lot of what we've done.
So what are some elements that you can see in Firewall 0 Hour that are, and also maybe Solaris as an example, that you kind of have from Call of Duty, that you got from Black Ops and the other titles? What is something that is like a secret recipe that you have reused but then in VR or reinvented?
I think a really important one is just playtesting. Honestly, getting your hands-on approach to what the team is developing and really making sure each person understands where it needs to go, because it's always a first pass is never your last pass, right? So it's always looking at it, and especially in VR, everything's as immersive as real life. And so we've learned to really just spend time in making sure we make the right call. Not always the right call sometimes, and we have to think about that while we're live and address issues. But we've certainly learned a lot about playtesting. Honestly, it comes down to iteration and looking at something and going, hey,
Sounds
great,
obvious.
the blockout's done. Yeah. Well, it does, but repetitive iteration and just redundancy is kind of what you do in game development.
Well, it's
People
easy
think
as,
you're playing
as,
the level 1,000 times. But
it's easy as developers to live in a bubble and think your game is great, and then when you launch it people are like, wait, this is not what we wanted. So if you play test, then you can constantly kind of balance it out. Yeah.
Right, and in specifics, I mean, we developed our feedback system from COD is certainly something I think everyone should leverage and study, because they do such a tremendous job at it. When you hit an enemy from a distance with a certain weapon, if they have armor on it, the sound, haptics, a lot of those are what I believe. I mean, I learned from the greatest, and I'm trying to carry that over into a medium that
it certainly has that same mechanic, right? Like when you hit a player in Solaris, you do hear that audible cue that you're taking damage from them. So that's interesting. That's something I didn't necessarily notice, but now that you've mentioned it, you kind of think, of course, it's in there, you know.
Well, isn't it more like giving damage rather than receiving? So like
that's what I mean.
You're making,
sorry,
yeah, that's what I thought you meant, like the thud, the happy thud that you get. I think it's such an amazing like game loop, and actually I think one of the things that really surprised me, especially given the size of your studio, is how good your marketing looks. The videos for Firewall, your DLC and that. You have like what looks like a mini, Hollywood trailer that runs for every one of them. The characters, the models, the animations, all of that for PlayStation, And I was always wondering, like, on a pie chart, like, is a third of your budget going to marketing? Because it certainly felt like it. And the quality of that, is that something that we can expect, or was that very much just a Sony deal?
Zen, I'm glad you bring that up, because it should be called out and recognized. We have a very small marketing creative service team, but small doesn't mean ineffective. They're pro, all class, all around. Nick Demke is somebody who drives that department with an eye that I don't believe most people have. I think he makes 3 glasses of orange juice with 1 orange, right? So I mean, he's squeezing everything out of a small team to put out something big, and that's the worry, right? I mean, everybody has to have an understanding, and I hope we can explain that through conversations with you guys, and you guys do a good job of it in your podcast of explaining how difficult things are when it comes to game content creation and all the side quest conversations. Like, people are working hard on that stuff, and so a small team working hard. How the sausage is made is never really thought about. I just want to see the end product, right?
What I thought was really awesome, because I actually visited you guys in what was it, like, you have an office at like close to Santa Monica, right? It's like this golden spot. It's like where all the tourists are, and it's like, how can there be like a development studio here? Like, this is like, the best place in LA to be at, because you just walk out of the office and you're at the beach, But you had like this, I've never really been to a studio that was like so dedicated to PlayStation VR. There were like PlayStations everywhere and PSVR everywhere I looked. But then you had like this like space for the marketing team, where you had like green screens and you had all the headsets and different like things that I have here too in my office to make videos with. That's what you had too. You had like your little hub between all these hardworking developers where you could just make content, record the game, and give updates and community stuff. So yeah, I think you did a great job with the setup, but also the marketing. Yeah.
And Frank is a large part of that effort too, because you mentioned the green screen. I mean, working from home even was a challenge in regards to developing our trailer and marketing materials. So in the office, it's always great to have that space. But
it's kind of interesting. We should mention Frank, because for those that have followed the podcast like from the very, very beginning, like we're talking like episode number 1, Frank was actually part of the team. He was part of our show. It was called the VR Inside podcast back then, and there's some really old videos on my channel if you want to go check them out. I'll like delve back into the past. That's awesome. But it was interesting that Frank made the kind of jump from content creator to developer essentially, and joined First Contact, and it's been really great to see him kind of grow in that role as well, and evolve in the industry.
Yeah, and I think that goes into how, I mean, we believe in the community, and has certainly believed in Frank. We saw what he was doing in the VR space, and was killing it. He was crushing it, and alongside you guys. I mean, you guys were getting the voice out for a medium that needed it. It still does, and he's grown so much. I'm really happy about Frank, and he's still an all-star.
He's such an awesome dude. Yeah, absolutely. So interestingly, I want to ask, like, how was the transition from making Firewall on PlayStation to then making like Solaris on Quest, for example? Because, you know, from what we understand, speaking to other developers, you know, they're two very different beasts in terms of different platforms. They both have their unique challenges. Can you sort of share any sort of challenges that you face, maybe bringing Solaris to Quest, or maybe taking Firewall to PSVR and what you learned along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just making VR on any platform is very difficult. What we've learned was ultimately performance is key, right? You got to be at frame rate, and we're working with an Android chipset, right? So we have a Quest that's mobile and tethered, and you have to make that work exceptionally well. Not to mention the cross-play aspect of it, where people who invested into a really high-end PC and a Rift S, that they want to carry that experience. We used a lot of what we learned in terms of simplicity, to be honest. The aspect of our rounds, our game loop, is something we learned from, and we'll continue to build on, because it's once a match is done, you're back into another round. We've learned with dedicated servers, of course, and overall platform performance, I'd say probably the number one key thing here, because I do want to commend our engineering team once more. It's like this thing running at frame rate in an untethered Quest in my living room while someone else plays in my bedroom on a connected PC VR. It's just amazing that we're able to do that over Wi-Fi to a connected effort. So
the subtleties in it are expertly executed, from the soundtrack, from the HUD elements. I mean, they're minor assets to kind of a player who's getting in and doesn't know what goes behind it. But when you see those done so masterfully, they really like give this feeling of quality. And having put many hours now both into the Rift S build and the Quest build, I actually prefer, just like with Onward, I prefer the Quest build now, because it's just seamless to get into, and I find I'm performing better. It's kind of like the difference with, I don't know, Quake 3 on Dreamcast versus a heavy loaded, PC version or something. But like the basics are all there, and if you're really looking to just get those kills and just continue on that game loop, it's very satisfying to do that again.
And also
again.
The visuals really support like the Quest system, I think. Like, it's been a while since I've put like a Quest game on that looks like so sharp, because it feels, even though the resolution doesn't change when you switch games in between headsets, but
that's part of the environment.
Really clear.
The development of the environment is part of that. I mean, the crisp, kind of clear, somewhat sterile environments that we have in Solaris helps with the fast movement. And things we've learned from Firewall is that, especially map development, we're working with arenas now. They're not so much a cover that you place in the environment baked in. It's cover you now deploy. You're picking up an item. But map development is something we have to work with, because again, we're working with crossplay. We're working with fast development on how many maps we want to make for the content moving forward. There's a lot of challenges there, but I think we're triumphant over most of them, and we're still ongoing. I mean, we're constantly testing. We have actually a lot of fixes coming up and improvements to the game for this calendar year, and we'll get into more specifics with Frank, of course. So talk about those.
So what I heard the community say, like a lot of people like Solaris. Some people say like it doesn't have much content right now. It's pretty bare bones in terms of what you get. Like, what would you say on that? Because I don't know how Firewall 0 Hour started. Like some games start with like 3 maps at first, and then they is it kind of like the same model you follow with Solaris?
To a degree. I mean, we certainly are a live game, so we're the type of studio where, and I hope games are all leaning towards this direction, and I feel like some of them are, is when a game is released, we don't turn our backs. We're working with the game, working with you guys, the community, to develop that product. Coming out on Oculus this year, and much sooner than any other release, is for us to have an exclusive response, right? Like have all the Quest players, Quest 2 soon, to give us feedback and to help make the game more fun, more accessible, get all the, even content, right? I mean, content's going to come. I can tell you that right now.
I think that's one testament that we can say, the track record from first contact with Firewall, there was constantly delivering, quality content updates for that game. And hopefully we see the same with Solaris. And one thing I want to ask is, because there's a couple of sort of key feedback. I think the main two feedback points I've seen from the community over the game so far is a lot of people are enjoying it, but matchmaking is probably the number one requested thing, right? Same for us as a team, because like from right now, say if we wanted to join as a team, it would be almost impossible, right, to do that. So
right.
What are the
Frank? Well, you got Frank. If Frank is like with you, he can matchmake for you.
He can matchmake it with some Frank sorcery. Yeah, we had a few troubles getting a match set up that way, but now it would be pretty much impossible. So what are the sort of plans around matchmaking? And is that sort of like a number one priority, or is there something else that's a priority right now? Or
there will be some matchmaking efforts for sure, and you're mentioning squads. That's in current development. We're going to be, I can't give you any specific dates or anything like that, but I can let you know we're working on it, and it will come to the game.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of revealing more information as we.
And I think people, as long as they know that that's like in the works, I think they're happy to know that it's going to be coming down the pipeline. And the other interesting feedback I saw was that some people didn't like the two-handed gun holding on Quest, because for those that haven't played the game, basically your hand is kind of your free hand that's not on the trigger is kind of tied to the barrel of the gun, the front of it, to kind of steady it. You can pull it away, but it kind of snaps back into place. And some people mentioned that this might have been developed that way for the PlayStation aim controller side of things that kind of ended up in Quest. And do you think that eventually that will separate and maybe Quest will get more free movement of their left hand, or do you reckon it will just stay the same on the two systems?
Right now, that's the exact reason we're going to be doing crossplay, right? So there's going to be a need for a unification across the board in terms of how you behave, especially if it affects gameplay in any such way.
Right.
I feel bad for the guy who animated the hand, because the hand is actually very well animated. It's like, usually when you play Overwatch and this hand is like moving in that nice way. Yeah. But it's like, it's like stuck there. You're like, I want my own hand there. But the hand, if you look at the hand, it's nice animated. Really, so I feel like someone has been working on that for like, this hand, and now the hand is gonna get deleted again. It's like, no,
of course not. But I mean, we understand that feeling, especially right out of the gate. We expected it to a degree, and we're hoping when people play more, they'll get accustomed to it and realize that there are a lot of benefits. And I get the understanding of virtual reality simulation approach versus we're a video game at the same time. We need to keep it fun, so that's part of it. It's really just comes down to just getting used to it. There's more plans in regards to the hands themselves, so we'll expose those in the future, but
and I think
a lot of it is crossplay.
And it's coming to PlayStation VR in the future, but I don't know if you've released any sort of release dates or anything like that around PSVR yet, have you?
Nothing on PlayStation VR yet. We'll be releasing more information as we, we're focused on Oculus as it's the first weekend rather, to make sure that we're steady and stable, and we'll and just you guys to talk about PlayStation for sure.
In terms of like roadmap, I'd imagine this is like a given, but like we can expect more game modes, more maps, and stuff like that in the future. And
definitely,
and that's what I was going to ask, basically.
Definitely expect more content. We're going to be releasing more maps, and those will be free. Weapons will be free. There won't be anything we charge for that affects a pay-to-win aspect. Everything will be cosmetic that will be driven by any sort of purchases. But definitely expect content like that. I mean, you guys know from what we do in the past is never really stop in terms of what comes out. So expect more in the pro season. It's all part of this narrative, right? We have this being the preseason aspect in terms of all of our athletes getting accustomed to the game, reporting back. I mentioned this in another conversation, but the community is like our players association. We're getting feedback through many channels, and we're basically filtering them out and staging how we're going to address each piece. And of course, there's going to be something you want fixed, but we may have to provide context to you guys to go, it's something more important, like this is going to get fixed before. And then you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So expect transparency to that degree, where we want to create a roadmap that gives you an idea of what to expect in the coming months.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think it's a good sign that we see more multiplayer titles that are easy to pick up. Same with Population 1. I felt like there are a lot of very heavily simulated shooters, and we now see more stuff that is just everyone can join in on the fun. And of course there is a strategy to it, but I feel like even if you would be in a match with, of course we're still waiting for the matchmaking to be balanced also in terms of level and KD, but I feel like everyone can kind of jump into the fun, because everyone knows how to hold the gun, everyone knows how to shoot, and then after that it's time to think about tactics. Okay, what guns are better, when should I pick up this or that, and that's it. So you're almost like instantly going from I don't need to worry about how I move and how I need to shoot, but more to, okay, so how can we win, and I think that's great. And I'm happy that that's more, coming, especially with Quest 2, because there are going to be so many new people joining VR. And if you, let's say, throw them into Pavlov or Onward, they're like, the heck, how is this all, So this is like simple, straightforward.
I appreciate you saying that. That's exactly what we aimed for, because we as a team actually worked on titles where you have to put a mag in your sidearm and rack it before you fire. You can change the safety from safety to fire ready. It ends up making you feel like the opposite of John Wick, right? You don't really feel that great because you're fumbling the magazine, the gun drops. So we definitely take exactly what you said. That's
I saw people saying like, I want to manually reload. I'm like, well, then you didn't play the game, because the gameplay and the game modes, it wouldn't work that way if you had to do. And there are other genres.
That would be a different game. That would be a different game, because I know, like I said before, like the Lonely Viper, like he's an absolute master at playing those types of games, and I think that he's probably like he beats all four of us together in a game like that. But because this is like so much more fast paced, and I think that the comparison that Zim made earlier with the Quake of VR, that really goes for this one. High energy, high octane, high adrenaline, very fast gameplay, and that's just a completely different kind of game.
So the biggest barrier to social, though, this is the thing that I got from Firewall, is that you could hop into a match and you could play with people from around the world, and you can really get social with them, and teamwork is just of the essence. You don't have a good time because you don't have a good team, and what that means is either you're not putting it in, they're not communicating. Any team of 4 people who are talking have an advantage over a team that isn't talking. And I find the exact same thing is happening here. One bit of feedback that irked me a little bit, because I think it's a platform problem, not a Solaris problem, is that sound you get from Quest players who aren't cabled in. And from what I've heard is, even from John Carmack, that this absorbing audio feedback loop that sounds like absorb sound isn't specific to Solaris, but I'm hearing it from a lot of people saying, oh, why won't the devs patch this? I don't think that's in your guys' control. I mean, you're a ex-QA guy. Have you heard that feedback yet? And are there any, I don't think there's anything you can do about it, but are there any plans around that or even communicating that message?
Our engineering team is definitely searching for solutions there on the VoIP front, but I've heard that as well, and we're planning to, we're going to add a prompt somewhere where it basically says best experience with headphones, and I think for the most part most players that would be playing on a competitive level do that, but we've heard of that, and we do have some tickets regarding that, and I think Frank's been communicating that, plugging in headphones right now until we sort it.
I've just got a question about competitive, because obviously, like you said, this is kind of pre-season. Everyone's kind of getting their feet wet in the game, learning the game mechanics, and then obviously we've got the pro season coming soon. And obviously, like over the years, we've kind of seen an erosion of like VR esports. It started off really huge around Oculus Connect 4 and Oculus Connect 5. We saw a big like presence of VR esports. Are you kind of hoping that Solaris will be like one of those VR esports games, and maybe can we expect like big tournaments in the future with like cash prizes and stuff like that?
QuakeCon.
Yeah, absolutely. Any kind of tournament esport driven approaches we can make with Solaris, we want to, and that's what we aim to make is a game where you could, again, competitively you could play, casually you could play, but really you want to get your team together. We'll get squads. You could squad up with your friends, play against other people on their teams. And hopefully be on a show floor somewhere with, some really competitive sponsored teams showcasing their skills.
So I'm wondering one thing. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but your game seems to be inspired, the backstory seems to be inspired by that, and also maybe the visuals a little bit too, is rigs on PlayStation VR. It didn't have a long run. Guerrilla made it.
But that was a fun game.
Studios. You know, they also made Horizon Zero Dawn. It's a huge studio, Dutch studio, by the way. Big thumbs up. But yeah, so they made rigs, and it was also about athletes, but then it was more like Fox Machine, you know, where you had like your own Mac and you jumped into it. But you know, it was like this Olympics basically of like teams battling against each other. And Solaris gives me those vibes. I'm not sure if anything came from that, but yeah.
We definitely looked at rigs, and maybe this will also strike a nerve in terms of Wipeout. Wipeout has a lot of cosmetics. And Formula One racing, and I think with Hess, when we're talking about this, it has a lot to do with if all the sports in the world, right, they all kind of phase out and becomes a one unified sport where countries, galaxies, right, because we're in the near future with this VR inception, putting the Quest on, putting the helmet on and logging into the arena. That was always the goal. It's like a Formula One racing, get your sponsorships on your suit, and you could earn sponsorships. And that's maybe a touch up in the future of cosmetics that may come down the line, right? Where it's like, oh, I want this sponsor. It's our helmet company. We have plans to make new helmets, updated skins for the suit and the pistol itself. But our helmets are going to be what's core. It's going to set yourself apart.
Yeah, that team livery idea and the DLC that I've seen already in Firewall. I know Mike has already said it, but we're huge Firewall fans. I mean, Firewall gave such a great Bond experience. But yeah, the idea of that kind of Wipeout livery, you know, being able to share that, you know, getting our lovely F.Reality mint green on our shoulders or something. Nice. I mean, it would be so cool to just be able to suit up together or go blasting, you know. But I know there are teams of esports people who are just going to eat this up, which is why I'd love to see it at like hitting a QuakeCon or something like that, and actually bring people over who maybe even haven't even touched VR, who are like, I'm sitting here with my 120 hertz monitor, you know, I don't pull me away. Sorry, 144 hertz, I think now. But actually bring those people, hook them and show them, you know, VR esports. And I really think Solaris could be that door.
I think if you don't push it too much as an esport title, but you just let it naturally grow that way, it's good, because that was the problem before, and that's why it failed also partly, is because Oculus said, for example, Echo VR is an esports title. This is really esports, you know, vibe. Well, in the end, the community picks what the game is as an esport. If they like it and they start to get competitive, that's where you see natural growth, and that's where it starts to take off. Like, you can't throw money into Solaris and then say like, okay, we want this to be an esport. You can't force it. Like, the community in the end makes it an esport, and if that happens, you're lucky, and then you can start work together with brands and stuff. I like that's just my perspective. I don't believe in artificially trying to make your game an esport.
And another thing to really get into the esports environment is when the bodies die, leave them a little bit longer so the players can like teabag them.
God,
it really drives up views.
So I have one for you, and can't promise anything, but we have that purgatory state where you get taken out, ejected from the simulation, and you're in the 5-second respawn countdown. What we're testing out right now is having the person who took you out be present in there and having an emote taunt.
Oh boy!
And basically, it's like you're simulated teabagging. But then you're like, okay, I'm going to go after him. He's my new nemesis, essentially.
Yeah, that's going to instantly wind me up to go and like hunt that player.
Just have a teabagging emote, like just a character going like teabang.
Because you're going to see their helmet, their skins, and it's going to get under your skin. So you're going to want to get after
especially highlighting the character that killed you. I think that's really smart, especially if they look different from other characters. Potentially, that would be really interesting.
What would also be super addicting, but then we get into Battlefield, is like if you could pick something up that is like from the player, you know, something unique. That's like, oh, I got Mike's like tag or something, or some kind of achievement he got, and now I got that little like tag or something. I don't know.
So we got some interesting questions from the chat. One from Smizzle UK says, do we lose our current ranks when the pro season starts?
No, we will be supporting seasonal rankings. So when we have another season pop up, we'll be separating that.
It'll be separated.
So there's always this like immortalized in a certain season leaderboard. It could happen.
That's interesting.
I saw another thing popping up in the chat as well a few times. It's like, when are melee weapons coming? And specifically, I saw someone asking for a chainsaw.
It's not a bad idea. We're definitely going to be adding more close quarter weapons. Expect a futuristic shotgun at some point soon. Thank God. But nice. Definitely, we're going to try to close the engagement distances where right now I think we're covering a good middle ground. And the pistol handles yourself up close, but expect to see more weapons that fill in those different classes that definitely provide different strategies.
I have wondered one thing, like Firewall its visuals sell itself. And if I was to say, again, as a fan of fast-paced FPS games like this, and to be honest, Solaris is first thing in years that I've been on the hook for. Like I've played it 3 times in the last 24 hours. Like sat down, drained my Quest battery, done it again. Switched to the Rift S because my battery was dead, and that doesn't happen that often. So the number one thing that I think, and I went into Solaris really thinking I wasn't going to enjoy it a lot, and I think it's because of how it looks. It looks kind of rather simple, and we've had a lot of, particularly from Asian developers, not a lot of quality in that space. It doesn't look very good, kind of very simple visuals, arena style combat. You guys just happen to hit it really well. I mean, it feels great. It really taps that vein, that fun vein. And it's so easy to go after it. So I'm very interested to see, and this is probably less of a question and more just to kind of communicate it, but I'm very interested to see how your DLC comes, how you market and those visuals, because I got to say, any one of those videos that I would have seen for Firewall would have snagged me into that game, even if I didn't know what Firewall was. So I'm really looking forward to see how Solaris gets sold in that way.
I think what you're saying, I mean, like there are so many studios that are really small and are not able to make a shooter like this and say, listen, we have a roadmap, we're going to add more, and we have trailers and this and that. Like First Contact is a huge studio nowadays, so they can really pull this off in that sense. And I feel like they're like smaller ones, like multiplayer is like a dangerous route still to go into. But of course, First Contact has, the experience, they have the leverage, they have Firewall 0 hour. Of course, you guys have data of when people play and what they want and things like that. And, you have so much feedback coming to you. Well, other studios, if you just start off and you're like, we want to make a multiplayer shooter, that's really hard. That's really hard. So that's why I'm happy it's there. But I just want to say that it's just a challenge to make something like this.
Yeah, and one thing I just want to say, if you've got any last questions, put them in the chat now, because I've got one final sort of question to ask, and I think it's really important to highlight this as well, is that this game is released in such a unique time. Like with COVID, it's insane that you were able to get the game finished and in a state where you finally release it. And maybe you can kind of touch on some of the challenges you face, because I think the last 6 months for any dev studio, particularly releasing a game right now, must have been pretty challenging in itself.
Yeah, and I definitely will say a lot about how awesome our team is regarding that, because we're working from home. That makes things a little bit difficult, right? So we're a multiplayer game, it's 4v4. We have headsets, we have cross play, so we have a Quest to test, we have Rift to test to make sure it's good. We have low-end PCs, mid PCs, and high-end. And that in itself is a challenge. And testing is a huge one because, again, we didn't do a beta of any kind, but we had the whole team testing from their different locations. So we had some real-world examples of different routers. We were talking about that earlier, and different ISPs. So we made a lot with very little, but at the same time, it just took every day. Practically felt like we were living in VR for a moment and living in these simulated arenas, but every day just play testing. And it was just a lot of just everyday care, from performance tests to walkthroughs and with the art department. And we do our walkthroughs in VR. So you're walking around with the headset on and pointing a laser to a wall saying, let's change this up, put a color here, let's change this sponsor on this left side. So
that's brilliant.
And that's part of it, the art department. We have Jim Dargy, we have creatives in our executive level from Disney and Lego, and all of our collective minds to make something like Solaris stand out, specifically on Quest and a PC together is something I think I don't know. I can't give enough Oscars away to each person on our team.
No, I think, pulling something like that off, and I know there's a lot more content to come and there's a lot more work to be done, but I think, to get the base game out and get players into it, I think you did a great job.
And I think communication is key,
Yeah.
And I think we got
I would say that about the game. One thing is we are cross-buy, so when you buy it, you're playing on both platforms. You're not hinged to one. But we have a lot of social features coming up too. So just expect to see a lot more there in terms of who's playing on your friends list, different emotes, kind of expressing yourselves in games. So just wanted to mention that before we closed out.
So we got a couple of questions from chat. We got an interesting one from Andrew Manning. Will there be an updated graphics for Quest 2? We've seen, with games like Red Matter, for example, they've pushed a little update up. So if you've got a Quest 2, it'll take advantage of maybe like slightly higher res textures or anything like that. Is that something you've got planned in the works?
Yeah, absolutely. Expect to see us leveraging anything that the Quest 2 has and being very clear with you guys when we release for it. When it comes out, October 13th.
Awesome.
Nice. We also have a few questions. I mean, a few obvious one that I was expecting through in the show as well. We have both Diego VR and Max Fernandez asking, Firewall on Steam VR or Oculus, when?
Oh, man. All of a sudden it got hot in here. No comment on that.
No comment. Okay, thanks. I saw some people also asking, is there a deathmatch mode planned for Solaris? Is that something you can speak about?
That I'll say for sure. Never say never, because as we're heading into the first weekend, matchmaking is starting to get balanced out with players coming in and evaluating on the algorithm side, and just never say never with that. We want to give what the community wants, but there has to be an understanding, knowing that there's only X amount of VR players and we're an online game. So we definitely want to make sure that players are able to find a game, and we don't want to split that base up. But
of course.
Never say never.
Yeah.
And then we have Delirium Drew VR asking, when does the season start? Is it 4 weeks, 8 weeks, and how long are they going to last?
To be determined. I can't wait to share more information regarding seasons, but right now we're just collating everything right now. So.
And to wrap it up, there's one final question. They said, this is from Brandon. He asked, why didn't you wait to implement the friend system before release? So why didn't you push the release a little bit longer to implement a friend system from launch?
Good one.
That's fair. And I think, mainly because a lot of people have been waiting for the game, and we certainly wanted to get it out during times where players are kind of clamoring to jump into something online with their quests and their rifts. So for us, it's definitely our ability to gauge how to move forward while something like Squads is being developed.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to just be Squads that comes online feature-wise. There's going to be much more than that, but that's certainly our priority right now.
Sure. And one last thing is, where's the best place for people to give you feedback? Do you have a Discord, or do they tag you on Twitter, or what's the best way to give you feedback on the game?
We're on Twitter, we're on all socials. We're definitely on Discord, and then that can lead to links and hyperlinks to our Zendesk area where we're collecting a lot of our feedback and making sure it's surfaced the right way to the fan base. So subscribe to it, because I know a lot of other studios run their Zendesk, and it's very helpful for people to find the right answer.
Great. Well, I think, like I said, I think, getting it out in this time, although it is very bare bones at the moment, I think the fact that you've got these plans to add more and more content to it, I think is great. And I look forward to seeing how the game evolves in the future. But it's always interesting to get an insight behind the scenes of developers just launching a game, because I think you must all be very excited right now that the game is actually finally out there in players' hands.
Absolutely. Exhausted and hopped up on an espresso from being out and live right now.
That's awesome. So congratulations again on getting the game out. Maybe we should now pass it over to Zim, talking about some other games that are going to get their games out sometime next week with some releases.
Sounds good to me. All right. Well, I'll start off, because for those of you who listened to last week, I had a lot of feedback. I wasn't expecting it, but a bunch of people said they took my Phasmophobia mention, went off, played with their friends, and they described the situation as scary AF. In fact, we've got plans to play that, so if you're looking forward to a little bit more F.Reality action together, then keep your eyes peeled for that. That'll be good when we can hear Nathan and Mike scream their heads off.
Thanks for not mentioning me.
I'm just saying you're more of a man than these two guys, Rowdy. That's all I'm saying.
Rowdy would rather just sit in Discord and play scary sounds, but not be in VR himself.
That's true. That's more his style.
That was so well done. You guys were so scared.
From the last one. Poor Shavs doesn't know what we're on about. Inside joke there. All right, first thing I'm going to mention, doing a little bit of mentions at the start here because the timing of it. So 23rd of September, we got a new patch for No Man's Sky. Now, they keep doing these kind of content updates, and this one's called No Man's Sky Origins. Kind of interesting, actually, this one. I have put probably about 5 hours this week into getting back into No Man's Sky. I would say unfortunately, I was reminded immediately of the performance issues that the game faces, both trying to cast the game, play it myself, various platforms. But what do you get is they've actually spawned new star systems, new planets in pre-existing solar systems. So that's there. Some planets are actually so close to one another, people are like boosting off of the face of one planet and landing on the other one because they're less than 1,000 U, the distance measurement in that game apart. There's new clouds and planetary atmospheric kind of behavioral systems. So if you're going to land on a planet and it's showing clouds, you're actually landing through those clouds onto the surface of the planet. For Dune fans, there's also giant sandworms that are now featured in the game, which, as someone who was just playing Vox and they have giant sandworms as well, it really does get your blood flowing. So many of you are fans of No Man's Sky. I certainly am, and I think it's content you don't want to miss. So anytime one of these patches run, kind of very similar to what I was saying about Firewall, there's a explanatory video that comes out, shows you some of the key features, and some of the other stuff that is dropped is like horror features for the game, mechs, living ships. There's all kinds of stuff in No Man's Sky. So if you haven't revisited it in the last year or so, like me, I recommend going back and checking it out.
So is there any update on high-fiving people? Or
you mean punching them to death on a first meeting? Yeah. No, they haven't. I don't think they fixed that. First time I met Mike.
That's a feature.
Yeah, it's definitely a feature.
Oh, that's a feature. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a bit awkward. First time I met Mike, we were both streaming and I punched him to death.
Took them like hours to fight each other, and then fight each other. It's like, hey, high five, Mike. Oh wait, I killed Mike.
Yeah. Whoopsies. I wouldn't put it past me. It happens often. All right, next one. I'm going to give you guys something on PS and PC VR. Actually, a lot of these titles this week. It's kind of like, how last week was all about Quest and Quest 2? This week is like, well, shove it, Quest users. This is PC VR and PSVR week. So pretty much everything's about those titles. So this is Swordsman VR is what I'm showing on screen at the moment. So for $18 or £14 from Sin Studio based in Toronto, not too far from Rowdy, 25th of September, launched a gladiatorial VR sword fighting game. For those who are fans of Blade and Sorcery, you're going to go, because it looks a lot similar to it. It's got some kind of magic elements. It's got sword fighting. It's a story-driven, physics-based medieval game. There's epic boss fights. There's boss weapons. You fight knights, Mongols, samurai, all kinds of different things. You build your character suited to a playstyle, and you have a bunch of items that you can unlock. So that's Swordsman VR.
You said Toronto. So Rowdy could just go there and ring the door of the studio and ask for a free key.
It's only 7 hours by train.
I was going to say, it's not...
That's not bad. Hey, dude, it's free key, man. Come on, don't hate on free keys.
Yeah, so that's Swordsman. For anyone who's like interested in the choppy games.
Nice.
Next, now this is one that I saw and actually launched today. And I saw the visuals for this. And it's funny, Nathan alluded to this about 2 podcasts ago. Some of you will know on the podcast, I've called out this content before from Caves RD, which are basically walking simulators available in VR, right? In a very gorgeous kind of Unreal Engine 4 project. And there's a new one, Castle Rock Beach, West Australia. You might remember Middle Sander, Iceland, which we'd covered off previously. And so the business model that they support for these, I think, is really interesting. So it's free if you want to just have a mosey about on your desktop. So you can just non-VR it And then if you want the VR build, it's $5 or £4.49. So this released 26th of September, and it looks absolutely stunning. The guy's work keeps getting better and better. There's very light gamification in there in that you have to take pictures with a camera you find in the environment. So you find the camera, take some pictures, and that's basically it. And it'll usually unlock a locked part of the environment that then you can wander over to. But so that's Castle Rock Beach, West Australia. I certainly found the Iceland experience just really, really awesome to just lie down amongst some reeds and stuff like that. So if you're a hippie like me, that'll be your bag. If you're a gamer and you're into your Firewalls and Solaris, then just don't touch it. All right, it's not for you.
I would love to see more of this stuff coming to more people because Endreams made Perfect, where you had like 3-4 different places you could just sit in and relax and also interact a little bit. I think it would be nice to kind of have like a studio that is, well known making something like this again because people love that stuff.
Yeah, it has a place. Like last week we talked about Cubism. That's another one that was launched recently. Just these kind of Zen things really important for this time, and so I couldn't help but mention that. So Caves RD, keep doing the great work. Love that stuff. Now, for anyone who's spent too much money on tech recently, whether they're buying PlayStations, or the recent Quest, any of this stuff, there's a lot of stuff out there to put your money at. If you want something free for the next month, well, good for you. Frostpoint VR Proving Grounds is a new 10v10 mixed PvP and PvE FPS that's landing from In Exile, big studio behind Wasteland and the likes. 28th of September, you can start off this 3-week process, and they're running something called Play to Own, which basically, as you play the game, if you clock a minimum of 10 games per week and connect either your Steam or Oculus accounts, you can qualify for a game code. I've not seen that done in VR before. But I would say that this is kind of a really interesting game to play. It's very much a point control game, as I said, and it can run with less than 10v10, but it's a really, as Nathan was saying earlier, right? Like multiplayer is not an easy place to be.
10v10.
10v10.
That's huge.
It's absolutely enormous.
How can you pull it off like 2 weeks after your game came out? Like, I'm really curious. But like the fact you're saying that they use this tactic of, okay, you need to play this many games, tells me they are a little bit concerned about what's going to happen to their game. So like it sounds like a smart marketing trick, but it also sounds like you don't if your game is great, people will come back and you don't have to force them into doing it.
Yeah, and although I've played it, I can't comment on the play because I think I'm still under NDA for this. But I can just say that 10 versus 10, I think, is a very high bar. We've not seen. I think we've seen maybe one War Dust with a really high. I think it was like 32 players concurrently on a map.
And what happened to War Dust?
They filled it with bots, right? Well, they do still exist,
but bots are no excuse. Just saying.
Yeah, but
I don't know. I'm just a little bit skeptical about this whole game. Just saying.
So
I don't know.
The thing I like about this is it's open beta in this period, and I'd recommend if you're an FPS player, try it. It's free during the open beta, right? And it doesn't mean you have to clock 10 matches or whatever. You just get a taster for it. And then you can decide if it's for you or not. And then I think that proving ground, it's funny they have the name Proving Grounds because I think that those 3 weeks are going to be their proving grounds. The game is first available publicly. People have been involved in the closed beta over the last number of weeks. And I think it really will prove. Can they fill their servers? Can they get the hype drummed up? And will they have a successful launch at the end of it? But for now, you can get some free gameplay in for no moolah. So I think that's important.
I mean, that's a fair point you're making. I mean, play it until it's still active. That's usually what most people do when they play a new multiplayer VR game.
Yeah, exactly. And when's it going to be more active than when it's free? So next up,
I thought that was it.
No, we're still going.
Wait. Let me guess. Dodo Island 3.
Dodo Island 3 confirmed. You can slaughter all the Dodo Islands with a giant machete.
Man. Bring it up.
I've already seen a bit of this now. I've spoiled it. It's the Walking Dead Onslaught. Of course it is. So Survios are dropping on the 29th of September, which is this coming Tuesday, for PSVR, Oculus, and Steam for $30 and £24. A single-player step into The Walking Dead. So if you like AMC's show, then prepare for an onslaught of walkers as you assume the roles of your favorite characters, including Rick, Daryl, Michonne, and Carol, And that rhymes. Someone needs to turn that into a rap, please, now. Rick, Daryl, Michonne, and Carol. You're going to play through chapters of an all-new story, embark on scavenger runs, upgrade your player stats, manage your customizable weapons, trade in your resources to grow a community, and just have fun embodying your favorite TV show characters. So we've already had one great The Walking Dead game. I look forward to another as a big old zombie fan that I am. The Walking Dead Onslaught is coming. You guys have played it. What are you hyped for about this release?
Well, I mean, first of all, you have all of those people in there from the show. Well, you know, with Saints and Sinners, it's like, well, you have the guns, right? You have like Rick's revolver in there and stuff like that. But in this game, they're actually there, you know, as characters. So I think that's quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. I do hope, like, you know, like we all know the Survio's titles, you know, they're quite like arcadey. But if you look at the trailer from this one, it looks like very different. Although they also, how is it called again? Westworld. They did that one as well.
Westworld.
So I do hope it like leans more to that than like the arcadey stuff from like, for example, Raw Data or. How is that pirate thing called again? I don't think we really need that. How is it called again?
Sea of Thieves wannabe VR.
Battlewake.
Battlewake. Yeah, Battlewake. Yeah, you're right.
No,
so,
that was not a good game.
I think Rowdy, what you're saying is like the usual concern with Survios is that they have Westworld Awakening, and you have HBO paying them a lot of money to make a certain game they want. And it's the same with AMC. So it totally depends on what AMC said. If they want to have an arcade game to kind of sell a new season to people so they get another subscription of HBO, that could be a thing. Or HBO is like, we really want to build a future with more decent video games. And
that's what I mean with like that I'm a bit like conflicted as to like, if you look at the trailer here, you know, it does look far more like a Westworld kind of experience, you know, with like a story-driven, you know, missions, and like it feels like it's more. But on the other hand, I still have like, you know, Battlewake in the back of my mind, and I go like, yeah.
I don't know. I played it. I think Mike also played it. Like when I played it, it was still pretty rough in terms of like, you know, it was arcade.
How long is that ago?
And back then I didn't play Saints and Sinners because it wasn't out. Like they were the first ones to say we work on a Walking Dead game. But the moment Saints and Sinners came out, that's when they postponed their development.
Exactly. So I hope that they took that development time, you know, because they saw, of course, the success of Saints and Sinners, and that was a story-driven experience. And I hope that they, you know, kept that in mind, and like they make a game now where you're actually, you know, where you feel like you're in The Walking Dead, right? That's the point of this.
It's interesting. It's high, you know, like there are parts of The Walking Dead in any zombie flick that I think get bypassed quite a bit. I've only seen it done in a very few indie VR games, some of which are now dead. But like the desolation feeling, like you're abandoned, you're alone, right? Not necessarily the 28 days later zombies running at you 24/7. Because I do feel like there's a bit of a high octane volume dial that these titles tend to get. So provided there's still some in there of that feeling of desolation, and you can actually feel like you're on your own in some parts, which I felt like the Walking Dead Saints and Sinners actually did pretty well. In certain places it got quiet.
And the thing with Walking Dead, if you say Walking Dead, I mean I only watched like the first like three seasons I think. But like I always had the feeling like, you know, the human threat is always like much bigger than the actual zombie threat. And I like that they did that in Saints and Sinners as well. You know, we had those kind of factions that were playing against. You had to make rough choices, and you couldn't help everyone. And you know, you had bandits and raiders or whatever. And I hope that, you know, that it's not just going to be like another like zombie flick, because then it's not worthy of the name of the.
To me, Saints and Sinners feels like a game that is for everyone. If you watched the show, there are some elements in there like, oh, that's Rick's revolver, or that's the, you know, the katana from Michonne or something like that. But if you didn't watch the show, you can also have fun and play it. If you didn't watch all of the seasons, no one cares, because it's not based on on the universe, but not on the, you know, the seasons itself. So you have to catch up. Well, with The Walking Dead Onslaught, it's really for the fans, for the people who love the show. We're like, whoa, it's Daryl, whoa, it's Rick, whoa, this and that. So it's a total different vibe. And that's why I think it's arcadey, because they want new people to jump in there and then watch the new season and pay another subscription for HBO. I feel like it's more of a kind of movie experience.
But wouldn't that be weird then that they would make an arcade experience for the fans already of the show? Because they would like, I mean, if it is HBO or whatever AMC paying them,
but
they
AMC,
want new people in there.
Yeah, but AMC is involved with the development of this game, and that's why I think that. Well, with the other game, with Skydance, it's like they get the license and they make a game, but this game is not like, if you play the game, it's not trying to sell you the season, right?
Because I'd be far more inclined after playing Saints and Sinners to go and watch the show again than if I would have to play like an arcadey kind of experience.
True, but it's not screaming to you like watch the show. Well, I feel like with Onslaught, it's really heavily based on the characters that you all know. It's like, oh, you know Rick, right? And you know Daryl. Well, the Saints Sinners is like.
So are you saying that you think it's going to be an ad?
Well, it is an ad in a way. I mean, of course, it's The Walking Dead, and Saints Sinners is an ad in a way too. But it's more heavily focused on that. That's what I feel like.
Like TV to comic book fans for Saints and Sinners, I feel like the comics might be more.
Yeah.
Of a reason to jump into that.
Westworld Awakening was also an ad in a way, but it was a good ad to play.
Yeah, a quiet ad, unfortunately. I think that one needs more respect, you know?
Yeah,
anyway, like I'm hoping we're going to be pleased with what Servios have given. So 29th is when The Walking Dead Onslaught drops. Next, and looking over at the pressure pot of Mike, because I know he's particularly interested in this one. I've personally been preparing for is we are preparing for battle Star Wars Squadrons coming to PCVR, PSVR, and specifically not Quest. Sorry, Quest.
Does Mike have his puke bucket ready?
I'm so ready. I'm so ready to throw my ring up playing this game. I'm gonna enjoy every second of it.
So for anyone who isn't a fanboy, like Mike and many others in chat, I'm sure, on the 2nd of October, EA are bringing us Star Wars Squadrons, which is, you could argue, either a AA or AAA Star Wars universe experience, 5 versus 5 multiplayer dogfighter in first person. So this is not like your like ultra arcade thing. This is very much borderline simulation material here. You get your X-wings, you get your TIE fighters. You're right there in the cockpit, and you're constrained to the cockpit. You're not looking at yourself from a third person. All the campaign, the multiplayer, and everything else is actually playable on PC VR and PSVR. So although there's a console launch coming across, Xbox, PlayStation, etc., this is actually playable in VR in an entirety, and that's probably the most exciting thing. Also, cross-platform.
Can I just say that we haven't seen any VR gameplay from those trailers? It's all like 2D stuff where they pretend it's VR.
We did see. We only saw about 5 seconds, but I know you know that's a negligible amount. But we got about 5 seconds in the latest trailer. So yeah, that's a fair point. I'm not nervous about it because of what they're showing us in the cockpits. It is a game that I've pre-ordered, and I almost never pre-order. EA have gotten their claws into me, but between the story and just between the way the game is shaping out, the configuration options that you have, HOTAS support having been mentioned is coming actually not only for PC but will be patched in a day one patch for PS4. No restrictions on platforms or controls for their ranked combat. So this is really something that's like got me hyped. And if you want to get even more hyped, then go watch Hunted, which is a short CG short film that they've come out with as well, which is absolutely fantastic. And after watching that, just makes me want to see a whole film in the thing. Anyway, I've said enough about the game. Mike, guys, what do you guys think? What are you hyped for? Tell me.
So I am super hyped for this game, like beyond hyped. Like I went and bought like a proper Thrustmaster HOTAS setup just for this game, pretty much, and some like really expensive mounts to mount those bad boys to my chair. For the best experience. So I'm so excited for it. I'm also very excited for the fact that it has a single player campaign that you play not only as the Rebellion but also the Empire. So you see it play out from both perspectives, flying, X-wings, also TIE fighters. So I'm really excited about the story as well as the online multiplayer.
Yeah, the thing that is resounding to me, just that CG video, like the amount that they're throwing at this in terms of just the quality on, again, not just the marketing, but what we've seen so far from the early takes on the game, it's just got me salivating.
I
looks so good.
I actually have a list of the HOTAS systems that are getting supported by it. Should I just read it out because it's quite it's just a small list. It's
Go on, if it's short.
Around 6. So we have the Cytec X52 that is supported, the Cytec X55 Rhino, that sounds like the best name ever. Thrustmaster T6000M,
Yeah.
the Logitech Extreme 3D Pro, the Thrustmaster T-Flight HOTAS 1 for the Xbox, and the Thrustmaster T-Flight HOTAS 4.
I'm only
for
just
PlayStation
now
4.
starting to realize like how weird those names sound. Like hot ass, Trustmaster.
HOTAS,
Like
yeah.
what is going on there?
What do you mean they're adult toys? They're aptly named, Rowdy.
Yeah. Gonna get
I,
sexy up in here this week for sure.
I'm super excited for this game, although I have been screwed over by EA so many times in my life that I'm also concerned about them throwing in some stuff that I'm not really, like free to play is a thing that they don't really know.
I can tell you're super suspicious. Like every time
is yeah, because you know what they usually do? Like they launch the game, and then, for example, Mike plays it, and he's like, "Wow, guys, this game is awesome," and there are no microtransactions in there. And then, like 2 months later, they just like slowly putting some, no, we're not doing any no. And then they slowly like, and then the press already made their reviews, and I was like, "Oh yeah, but it's a fine game." So EA is like EA likes money.
they're slick.
So,
yeah.
just saying. I mean, everyone likes money, but as long as you just make the game and you give some good content. Like, I just hope they push a lot of content. They give you new ships. They keep it going. Because, dude, like, I played the last Battlefield, and they promised me all kinds of maps, and they promised me all kinds of content. And in the end, it's like, oh, yeah, there are not enough people playing it. We're not making enough money. We pulled the plug out of the project, So it's Star Wars, so it should be fine. But still, guys, EA, just saying. I don't pre-order from EA. No.
I almost never, but let's see what they do if they shoehorn anything in. Okay, 2 more quick mentions and then we're out of here. So I did want to mention, because there's been like just lots of really good games out, and I didn't want to completely shaft Quest this week on releases, so I will mention a game. There's a game called Walkabout Mini Golf, which is a multiplayer Quest game, which looks actually pretty decent, and it dropped on the 24th of September, so quick mention of that. And also for our PSVR players, anyone who's looking to get themselves sweaty until you fall, on the 29th of September, we'll be dropping, which is a sweat bucket of a game. It is going to break you. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. And when you meet like the epic first boss, the sheer panic that will surge through your body is insane.
Oh my God. I've not beaten him, Mike, but I've gotten there a few times, and I agree with you. There is a panic. There is definite panic in your eyes.
Yeah, fun game.
Very good.
Fun
and
game, sure.
That's our releases for this week. Quick recap. So Swordsman VR, Castle Rock Beach, West Australia, Frostpoint with the freebie, Walking Dead Onslaught, Star Wars Squadrons coming out next Friday.
Not a bad week for PCVR.
Great week for PCVR and PSVR as well.
Yeah, exactly. Take that, Questers.
We're, of course, going to be talking about our hands-on with these games, no doubt, next week. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Thank you for joining us live.
Hands-on with the Thrustmaster and the hot ass.
Always. Thank you for joining us live. We really appreciate you all joining us live in the chat and getting to hear your thoughts on these sort of subjects as well and what you played over the last couple of weeks. Thank you again to Shabs for joining us from First Contact Entertainment. It's always amazing to get an insight in behind the scenes of game development. We wish you all the best of luck with Solaris, and we can't wait to see these updates coming over the next few weeks. If you're interested in checking out the next show from us, it's going to be live, of course, on Saturday, 7 p.m. in Europe, 6 p.m. in the UK, 12 midday in Central US. You can also check out the audio version, which is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and on Spotify. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the show. Subscribe to the channel for all our future content. And we'll be back on the show next week with more VR news. But until then, have a great week in VR, and bye-bye for now. Take care.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye. Bye-bye.